everyone, Tracy here with the Oasis for Natural Healing. So, tonight we're going to be talking about quantum nutrition testing, pets, and your health. So, everybody loves their fur babies. And I don't know about you, but they're like my kids. And I actually took better care of my fur kids more than I took care of myself, especially until I realized on how important my health was. And we're going to talk a little bit about um, now, mind you, by no means am I a veterinarian. However, I've worked with my pet see a holistic veterinarian, and I've been under the guidance of a holistic veterinarian. My veterinarian from way back when was what got me into muscle testing. So, muscle testing can absolutely work for pets. And like I said, I actually started my holistic health journey not with myself, but actually with my pets. So one of my pets was actually he was my happy go lucky puppy, and he started having behavioral changes. And so out of nowhere, and he was fairly young. And my we wound up doing a whole bunch of blood work. And my aunt, who's a dog trainer, had suggested a thyroid panel. Now, I'm a nurse at this. I'm not a family nurse practitioner. I'm not, certified in holistic health by any means at this point. I'm a cardiac ICU nurse. And, I just wasn't thinking, oh yeah, the same labs for people can apply to pets, and now that makes sense. But at the time, I wasn't even really thinking that. It's like, why is my baby all of a sudden becoming Cujo? My happy-go-lucky puppy turned into Cujo, literally. And not very nice. I actually got bit by him, and his behavior was actually quite scary. And so we did blood work, and his blood work came back, and it was borderline. His thyroid level was in the normal range, but it was borderline low normal. And I really didn't think anything of it at the time. But then, I kind of did a little bit more thinking, and I talked to my aunt, and she's like, you really should have his blood work sent out to Dr. Jean Dodds. Now, Jean Dodds is a veterinarian who's out in California, or at least at the time she was out in California, and she was doing she did huge research on thyroid issues and behavioral changes in dogs, and she was doing lots of research on that. So I had his blood work redrawn and resent out to Dr. Jean Dodds. And a couple days later, she comes back and she calls me and she goes, okay, his blood work is abnormal. His thyroid is being affected, but it's not from his thyroid. That's not why, there's something outside affecting his thyroid. And I really would suggest that you see a veterinarian that's certified in Chinese medicine. And I'm thinking to myself, how the heck do you, and there's a holistic veterinarian association. So you can look up a holistic vet in your area and stuff like that. And by the way, some people just like with doctors, they say that they're holistic. They're really not holistic. So it just really depends on some are, I hate to say it, there's some chiropractors that are really good and they believe in very much holistic health. But there's other chiropractors that are more Western based chiropractic, and they're more, they still go into the medical aspect, like the medicine realm, and rather than trying to treat people holistically, and all encompassing. So you just have to really kind of research the vet and make sure that they're truly holistic. Now, so there is a website to find if there's a holistic or alternative, veterinarian in your area. So, and it was really kind of hard to find. And so I wound up telling this to my current veterinarian, and she goes, "Oh, well, I just got certified in something called nutrition response testing, which was it's a form of muscle testing." Now, there's many different forms of muscle testing, just like there's many different forms of dog training. There's different styles of it. And I found out later on that not all muscle testing techniques are created equal. So I'm watching her and she's doing this, like, to me, like this voodoo stuff. And I'm like, what the heck is she doing to my dog? I'm like, and I can't believe I agreed to her doing this. I'm a nurse, right? And so she's touching different, acupressure points, and she's doing muscle testing. She's using, an associate, and pressing on that person's arm, and it looked a whole bunch of weird and wonky. So found out that his thyroid is being affected, and that he had toxins and a whole bunch of other things that were going on, and some vaccine injury, okay, and some other things. So we started doing a detox. In the meantime, my two cats, one of them was having bloody diarrhea and I couldn't figure out which. And they were not making it to the litter box. And now my cats at the time, um, they were only a couple of years old and like no major health issues. They never had litter box issues. One of them wasn't making it to the bathroom and he was having bloody diarrhea, and he was having bloody diarrhea in the bathtub. He was trying to find some place. So, he wasn't going on the carpet or anything like that. He was trying to find a place to have a bathroom, but he couldn't make it. So I couldn't figure out which one. So I'm telling this to my now new voodoo vet. And I say that kind of funny because it's actually scary accurate. And that's what got me into holistic health. But at the time I thought it was like wonky and all this other stuff. And so I'm watching, so I tell her, okay, bring in both cats and we'll muscle test them. So she winds up muscle testing them, and we figure out that it's my one cat's stretch, not the other one, and it's his gallbladder. So she was able to figure out, okay, it's his gallbladder. She found out why, and she goes, well, just give him, he tested for a whole food supplement called AF Beta Food from Standard Process. There's multiple different ones for the gallbladder. He specifically tested for this one. So it literally takes the guesswork out. And so she muscle tests him, test for AF Beta Food, give him this. And I kid you not, within 2 to 3 days of starting him on the supplement, because we didn't know which cat was doing this, there was no more bloody diarrhea in the bathtub. I was like, are you kidding me? Now, this had been going on like daily for like over a week. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. It was like truly, in my eyes, like amazing and a miracle. And he didn't have bloody diarrhea literally within 3 days just by adding a supplement to support his gallbladder. So then my adopted Rottweiler, she was 4 months old when I adopted her. And now I was starting to get into species appropriate diet, okay, which does not include kibble. So species appropriate diet is raw food. They are hunters. They are true meat eaters. So kibble is your version of like eating cereal and processed foods. Very, high cook temperature kibble takes out all the nutrients. And then they spray paint the stupid kibble with like artificial, minerals and vitamins to make it look healthy. Oh, look, I read the can, or I read the, the bag of kibble, and it looks like it has a whole bunch of vitamins and minerals. Those are all synthetic. So, which quite honestly makes you, it's a chemical, and your body treats it as a chemical, and it makes you even more vitamin and nutritional deficient in the long run. So I started reading up about like species appropriate diet. And I suggest any of you guys there's a good book called The Forever Dog by Dr. Karen Becker. I highly recommend it, by the way. And so I started reading up and following Dr. Karen Becker. She's got a cookbook, on how to make your own homemade raw recipes for dogs and cats and how to make it sure that it's balanced. And she's got like YouTube videos on like the worst pet foods to the best pet foods and stuff like that. So started researching all this stuff. And my aunt, who is a dog trainer, started getting me into raw food. And I still didn't fully understand. So, I was buying fish from Jewel, which is if you're not in Illinois or this area, it would be oh gosh, Albertsons. I think that's like more down south, or whatever. So, but Jewel is, yeah, I think they're all owned by like the same company or whatever. Albertsons is one, and I forgot what Strachan is. No, is it Strachan Van Til's? Maybe. But yeah. Anyway, so was buying fish from Jewel, and I would freeze the fish because, I heard that like freezing the meat first sometimes will kill off any bacteria that the dog's gut can't handle. So I was freezing the meat and then I would defrost it. And, I was adding like, I'd find chicken liver and all these other things. So not really fully understand what I was doing, but I was trying. And my puppy that I had just adopted, after a couple months started limping his like really bad. So now I was buying more into muscle testing, but still not 100% sure about muscle testing. Really kind of wasn't, didn't really, wasn't sold on the whole idea. Was thinking that it was pretty cool. Kind of starting to see results with my other pets. But anyway, but I was very much into chiropractic and acupuncture. That was very much hands-on to me, and that made more sense. And so I took her to see my vet's associate, who is an acupuncture and chiropractor. So did chiropractic, acupuncture. I even did massage. Still no results, still limping. So then we did x-rays because Rottweilers, I don't know any of her history. She's a puppy. She was a rescue. Rottweilers are notorious for like elbow dysplasia, hip dysplasia, things like that. So could it be that? Did x-rays, and of course, no issues. All the x-rays came back fine. Sound familiar? Like, how many tests have you guys gone through? And all of your tests and your results, come back fine. Or even if they don't, you do have arthritis, guess what? There's still an underlying cause. So, but anyway, in her case, her x-rays were fine. Wasn't getting any results with acupuncture, chiropractor. So I finally said to the other vet that I was seeing, okay, can you do your like muscle testing? Can you take a look at her? So she does muscle testing and she goes, okay, well, she's coming up for mercury in her joints. She goes, what are you feeding her? So here I am all proud of myself. I'm like, well, I'm feeding her a raw food diet. And okay, great. The vet says, and what are you feeding her? And I'm like, well, I'm feeding her raw fish because it's really good in, fatty acids and omega-3s and all that other stuff and omegas, and she goes, okay, is the fish that you're feeding wild caught or farm raised? And I said, does it matter? And she smiled at me and she goes, uh-huh. And not realizing, I didn't know this, at the time, that farm raised fish is higher mercury content. So, and then I'm like, well, and okay, so on days that I'm not feeding her raw fish, I'm giving her human grade fish oil supplements. She goes, okay, that's good. What brand? And I said, well, it's Jules brand, the Equate brand. It's human grade, so it should be safe. And she just smiled at me and she goes, well, does it say mercury and lead free on the bottle? And I asked her, does it have to? Should it say that? And she goes, uh-huh. I said, really? And she goes, yes. I said, oh. And she goes, standard process, which is what I use, is mercury and lead free. Said, oh. And she's like, yeah, she's coming up for a lot of mercury in her joints causing the limping. Said, really? Now, not fully believing this, I run home and I call up my mom, who's also on fish oil. She's got a different brand at home. And I call my mom and I'm like, okay, your fish oil, does your bottle say mercury and lead free? And she goes, yes, it does. I said, really? Because mine did not. And then I started doing some research, and mercury does have an affinity, which means it's readily absorbed into fatty tissue or soft tissue. So, soft tissue includes things like um, brain, fat. So, your joint tissues, joint spaces. So, these are soft fatty tissue. So, mercury has an affinity to that. So, hi for anybody who's joining. If you want to say hi, that would be great. And we're just kind of getting into like pets and healthy, quantum nutrition testing, pets' health, and your health. And I'm just kind of going over the story of my dog, and this is actually how I got into holistic health, and this is actually what got me into a believer. So anyway, so I was feeding my dog like a whole bunch of like human like fish from Jewel and things like that. But I didn't realize at the time that you had to have it had to be um, not farm raised, but it had to be wild caught. So this is way back when. And anyway, so she was getting muscle tested, and we found out that she had mercury. And so I wasn't truly quite convinced that mercury could cause a lot of joint pain and inflammation and all these other things. So I run home and I do some research, and sure enough, mercury has can cause like brain fog, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, joint pain and inflammation, fat retention, hormone imbalances. It can kill your thyroid. So, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I started doing research, and yes, farm raised fish has a higher content of mercury than wild caught fish. I was like, oh my gosh, I did this to my dog. And now she's a puppy and she's limping, and her x-rays were all negative. Chiropractic wasn't working, acupuncture wasn't working. So I go back to the vet and I'm like, okay, let's start her on the protocol that you're recommending, because she was able to muscle test and figure out exactly what supplement her body actually needed. And it took about 6 months of detoxing, and all of a sudden her pain went away. And so then, and like I had shared before, you can, but like my other dog was on it. And then all of my pets wound up going in to see this holistic vet. And then my health started declining. I had other like autoimmune diseases and autoimmune issues and hormone imbalances and all these things. And I was put on psych meds, and I was a hot mess. And so I finally asked her, does somebody do what you do for people? And that's what got me into this. And I've been actually medication free. Now I've been on meds since I was 17. Well, actually, even before that, because I was getting allergy shots, and I was on asthma allergy medicine since I was like 6 years old. So technically, I've actually been on some sort of medication for almost 40 years. When I turned 40, so the last 5 years, I've been completely medication free. I've been off of allergy medicine and asthma medicine for almost 10 years now. But I've been off of psych meds for the last 5 years, and off of hormone replacement therapy for the last 5 years. So, and yeah, so my pets were the reason why. Now, one of the things that I find what's very interesting, because now I don't replace your pet's veterinarian at all or anything like that, but we do pet health coaching, and we do muscle testing for pets here at the and we do some other things for pets, and we do virtual appointments and things like that. But one of the things that I do recommend for any pet is really go look at the Forever Dog by Dr. Karen Becker. That is a big, huge one. And she talks about, raw feeding and raw food diet. I absolutely love following Dr. Karen Becker, and she explains it very well. But one of the things that I actually find out from doing muscle testing with pets and with people is that some of the things that are actually not so good for pets can actually be found in people too. So, for instance, so I don't know your beliefs and stuff like that, but as a family nurse practitioner myself, and so vaccines, and I'm going to talk about them. So, vaccines actually have a ton of ingredients in there. And as when I was a cardiac ICU nurse and I was giving vaccines, I never ever, and we weren't taught what's in the vaccine, we were just taught that we should give it. And we were taught to follow the doctor's orders. I can guarantee you that most doctors, most nurse practitioners, and most nurses do not know all of the ingredients that are in vaccines, which does not make me feel proud that I didn't know what was in a vaccine and yet I was giving it, which is really, 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 really scary because it's not really good stuff that's in there and it causes lots and lots and lots of issues. And so some of my stuck cases for people, I have found out. So then, and you can actually read the insert. So some of these vaccines do what we call shed. So when you get the vaccine, you are actually spreading some of the virus, some of whatever, and even some of the chemicals that are in the vaccine to other people around you. Okay. So, like, for instance, some of the vaccines, like for dogs, you're not supposed to bring them to doggy daycare for at least 2 weeks because the vaccines can shed. And then the whole daycare, the whole puppy daycare can come down with like the flu, the puppy flu, canine flu, and all this other stuff. Okay. So some of these vaccines do shed. Well, one of the things that I found out is that they can actually shed to people. So some of my tough cases, it's actually hidden things from puppy vaccines. And the people are getting this. Now, the funny thing is that so I was actually for quantum nutrition testing. I'm certified in quantum nutrition testing for pets. It was actually taught by a holistic vet and the founder. So two people were teaching it. So Dr. Barbara Fox, who's a veterinarian, and Dr. Lisa Palmer, who's a chiropractor. And it was dual taught by both doctors. So quantum nutrition testing for pets was taught by both. And the funny thing is that the veterinarian books, like the actual straight veterinarian books for pets, and she brought this, that like parasites from puppies and from dogs and from cats can actually get transmitted to people. Now, if you talk to a Western medicine physician, so this is in legit veterinarian books. But if you talk to a Western medicine practitioner, oh no, a lot of these parasites cannot, like heartworm, people cannot get heartworm. People cannot get these parasites from their pets. However, the veterinarian books actually state that, yeah, heartworm can be transmitted to people from their pets. So some of your chronic issues might be actually stemming from the vaccines, from the flea and tick stuff, and from all of the other things that you're putting on your pets, which are not only affecting you, but also your pets, because some of this stuff is not actually very, very good for your pets. So just be like, point being is just be careful of what you put on your pets might also be affecting you too, and your pets. Some of these vaccines, like, okay, so let's take rabies vaccine, for instance. Now, a veterinarian only has to have one rabies vaccine for their entire career. Their entire career. But yet we're giving a dog and a cat, especially dogs, rabies vaccines on an annual basis. Why? The veterinarian only needs it one time in their career. Why do we need to give it to our pets every single year? And why is the dose the same for whether the dog is a 200-pound dog versus a 10-pound dog? Why is the dose the same? I'm just throwing that out there. So there's some of this doesn't add up on how much we're actually giving to our pets. And then we're wondering why our pets are getting so sick. Now, actually, somebody that I know got all of their vaccines for their pets, and one of their pets was actually starting to have breathing difficulties. And they called the veterinarian, and the veterinarian said, no, it can't be a vaccine reaction. And then all of a sudden, the dog really wound up in respiratory distress. I think he had a seizure and stopped breathing and passed away. And it was actually a family member's dog. And this happens more than you think. And it's actually pretty darn sad. So what are some things that you can do? So my suggestion is titers are really good. So titers are is a blood draw, and you can find out whether they still have immunity. Two things. If you're worried about, ticks and all this other things, so there's stuff all over the internet that says no, garlic is not good. That's a bunch of bull. Garlic is actually in the right dose for the right, for the right size and stuff like that. You can give garlic on a daily basis, a small amount, and you can even make a garlic spray and spray it on your pets. And it's an anti-tick, anti-flea, anti-parasitic. You can make, like I said, a spray, and you can spray the dog's coat before you go out into the forest preserve. And it's not going to harm your dog. Now, onions are different. Okay. So yes, garlic is in the same family as onions. You don't want to give onions, but garlic is a little bit different. And yes, you can give a small amount, and you can actually follow any holistic vet, and they will tell you the same thing. And they've been doing it for years. Mainstream allopathic medicine for pets will tell you otherwise. Why? Because then you have to give them all of these drugs and medications. I've been doing garlic for over 10 years with some of my, Frosty, and my one dog is now going to be 11, and he gets garlic on a routine basis. No issues whatsoever. I've done it with all of my pets, all of them. My other two dogs, who sadly pass away from old age. And a lot of my aunt gives garlic. Like, garlic is fantastic. So there are natural things that you can do that are anti-parasitic, anti-flea, anti-tick. You don't have to give all of that flea and tick stuff, because all those chemicals that you put on your pet are getting into their bloodstream, can cause a lot of issues. And then also you're absorbing that too. You're petting them, you're touching them, you're giving them kisses, you're ingesting all of that. So what you put on your pets is also getting into you too. Don't forget that. And this is what's causing, and some of these things are being missed even by other muscle testing practitioners. And actually, quantum nutrition testing for pets is actually what opened up my eye, like, to some of my tough cases. Like, oh my gosh, I need to be looking at the pet aspect of things, and like, what is the person doing? So they'll be all holistic for themselves, but still be doing, some chemicals and stuff for their furry kids. And then they're ingesting that and getting that into their system too. So looking at that is really important. So what we do is, and we can find out, like, well, why do you have your symptoms? Why does your pet have their symptoms? Is it heavy metals? Is it heavy chemicals? Is it food intolerances? Is it mold? Is it Lyme? Why do you have your chronic pain? Why does your pet have your chronic pain? We actually just had, one of our patients' pets had really bad skin, itchy skin, really bad allergies, losing their fur, didn't know what to do. We were able to muscle test using quantum nutrition testing. It can be done virtually. Yes, as wonky as it sounds, this patient was all virtual, has not brought her dog in, and skin is cleared up, blood count. So they were doing, CBC. The blood counts were all off wonk. It was all wonky. Blood counts are stabilizing, and skin is much better, and not having any hot patches and hot rashes and hot spots. Dog isn't itching and licking its paws anymore. Not as anxious, and doing so much better, and all virtual. So we can pinpoint exactly what's causing you or your pet's issues, whether it's heavy metals, heavy chemicals, food intolerances, immune challenges like parasites, mold, Lyme, bad bacteria, all these different things. And then figure out exactly what supplement your body actually needs to get rid of the underlying cause while giving nutritional support. So whether you have normal labs, or whether you have abnormal labs, or whether you have symptoms and the doctor goes, oh, yes, you have X, Y, and Z disease or issue. The only thing that we can do is maintain it, and you're going to have to be on supplements for the rest of your life. That might not necessarily be true, guys, whether it's you or your pets. So, and what we do, again, is we can help find out exactly what the underlying cause is. If this is something that you would like more information about, you can schedule a free 10-minute discovery phone call with us. So, and you get a free 10-minute discovery phone call on how quantum nutrition testing works and how it can help you, your pets, your loved ones, and how it's done actually virtual. As goofy as it sounds. Yes, half of my patients I don't see in person. If you would like more information, don't hesitate to call 708-694-4092. If you are like, yeah, I want to get this done, we actually have a special. We only have a couple more days going on our special for a discounted consultation. Our consultation is 2 appointments. Each appointment is an hour long. That's 2 hours of professional consultation time. Normally, that's $250 for both appointments, but this month through the end of May, it's only $79 for both appointments. That's like what, 30, a little, like what, 35, like 30, $38 an appointment or something like that. Not bad. So it's $79 for the month of May. We were doing a special for Mother's Day because women, we are very, very, we don't take care of ourselves. We take care of everybody else. We take care of our fur kids. We take care of our two-legged kids, take care of our honeys, our spouses, our parents, but we don't take care of ourselves. So for Mother's Day, we're doing a special for our consultation. Instead of $250, it's $79. And if you have an HSA or FSA account, that will pay for office visits and supplements. So, and it's a tailor-made program specifically for you. So if you would like more information, or at least to schedule a free discovery phone call to see if this is right for you, give us a call, 708-694-4092.